Hello beautiful people, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Lexi, and in today's video I am going to be talking about something that I am actually currently struggling with and that I am sure many of you have also struggled with: reading slumps. Nobody likes reading slumps. Reading slumps suck a lot. I would know. I've been in many of them recently because life is hard, and reading while life is in the way is even harder. Wise words from me. But that being said, there are times when you really want to read even though you just don't have it in you, or you really need to read for a book club deadline or a class deadline or a booktube deadline, whatever. People have deadlines for things and they need to read books sometimes, and it's hard when you don't really want to, even though you know you should, and you know you kind of want to, but the thought of picking up a book just kind of gives you the ick, which it happens to all of us. So today I wanted to talk about some ways that I have found to kind of help me get through my reading slumps, weather the worst of them, and then eventually come out on the other side with the drive to go finish 10, 11 books in a month again. It happens. These strategies work for me, so I can't promise they'll work for you. I am not a wizard, unfortunately. Or maybe I am, and I just can't tell you, so I'm lying to you. Who knows? But I do have some strats that work for me and will hopefully guide you in your journey to pushing through this reading slump. I thought this would be a perfect video to make today because I am so excited to read this. But I am also in a reading slump, and this book is very large and very intimidating and probably not the best thing to pick up while you're in a reading slump. This is intimidating and I am scared. That being said, here are ways that I like to fight those pesky reading slumps. The first way that I have used that I find useful is reading while you're doing something else. That way you can take breaks more frequently and it doesn't gnaw on your brain as much. And what I mean by that is, for instance, recently I have had a slightly unhealthy addiction to playing Dead by Daylight with my friends, which is a 4v1 party game where you kill people or you get killed. You do have to wait for matches to load up because you are matched with random people to be the killer or the survivors if you are doing that side of things. And while I wait for matches, I like to just chip away a little bit at my book. It doesn't get me very far, but it does get some progress. And then if I get to a part where I'm like, ooh, this is really interesting, I don't want to put my book down, I just say, hey guys, I'll be back later. I'm gonna read my book now, or whatever. Another good way to do this, or another, like, I guess not, it's kind of similar but a little bit different, but another way to go about this, and you guys are gonna come at me for this one. You're gonna say I'm crazy, but I like to watch YouTube or like a Twitch stream or something while I read. And that sounds crazy, but hear me out. And maybe I can only do this because my brain works at 500,000 miles an hour. But that way, because there's two things going on, if my book isn't particularly, and it's always a video that I don't like super duper care about, that way if I miss part of it, I'm not like too upset about it. But if my book stops being interesting, I can pay attention to the video and just like glance down at my book every now and then to like kind of chip away at the pages. And then if it stops being, or if it starts being interesting again, I can just, pause the video or leave it on as background noise and just keep reading. And I know a lot of you probably won't be able to do that because having two things going on doesn't work for everybody, but it works for me. And if it's something that you think might work for you, I do recommend trying it because it's a fun time, and then everybody looks at you crazy. So it's great because you're a wizard. Another method that I have found particularly useful, and this may be counterproductive for some of you, but it really works for me. Now this requires a little help from a friend who has read the book, so if you don't have a friend who's read the book, I'll give you an alternate strategy in a minute. But, and again, don't shoot the messenger for saying this. This is just something that works for me. But I ask a friend to give me a very low stakes spoiler of something that happens later in the book, but is still interesting enough to make me want to get there to read it and how it happens. So for example, if two characters get together out of left field, which isn't necessarily very low stakes, but it does, you know, for me, it works out because then I will want to read how the heck they got there. And I'll just want to read the book more because I'll know something big happens and I want to get to it so I can read it. And then even though like it happens, it doesn't feel disappointing because, you know, I was excited for it and there was so much buildup. Whereas, you know, if the characters get together out of left field and I hate it, I hate that idea, if I get there, I'm more likely to be even farther into like the reading slump that I was in before because I'm just like, oh, ew, why did that happen? That's gross. Just an example that happens sometimes, or, you know, if you don't have a friend to give you a low stakes spoiler, I think a lot of people do this. So again, don't shoot the messenger, but you can always go to the last page and read the last page. And if it gives you no context for what's going on, even better. If it gives you a little bit too much context, I am sorry. I did put the disclaimer that these are just my opinions and they won't work for everybody. So, again, don't kill me. But having just a smidgen of knowledge of what's to come, I feel like builds up the anticipation so much more because you're like, how did this happen? I need to know how it got there. Like, for example, this one is really bad. Like, it's not a low stakes spoiler at all. It was a very, very high stakes spoiler that I came across by accident. But I found out that a character in Chain of Thorns, which is the book I just finished, and was having a little bit of a hard time getting through just because it had been a minute since I read the rest of the series, and it was kind of hard to slip back into that world, but I mean, once I got there, it was amazing, obviously. I loved that book so much. But I had it spoiled for me that a character, I'm not going to say who, dies, and it was very sad for me to find out, and I think that I would have had to put the book down for a little while had I just read the scene and been surprised by who dies, because it was sad as all get out. So I'm kind of A, glad I had that warning, and B, it made me want to read to figure out how the heck that happened, because it was just a character you wouldn't expect to die, which, you know, is kind of weird to say in books, because I feel like at this point, depending on the books you're reading, you should expect that characters die. But it, like, was so sad, and I was still sad. I still got the emotional effect of the scene, because I didn't know when it was coming. I didn't know how it would happen. And when it got there, I had a little bit of preparation for it, because I knew that character ended up dying, but I didn't know how it happened. And so seeing it happen still gave me those emotions, and it made me want to read the book to get there to figure out that it happened. It works. Trust me. The final piece of advice for you that I have is kind of similar to the last one, but kind of not similar. It's a little bit different. And this one you might judge me for. You might judge me for all of them, but this one especially I feel like people will judge me for. And it would definitely be harder if it's a more indie book, I suppose, if it's by a less popular author or something. But for most of your mainstream books, for probably a lot of your smaller books too, I like to read fan fiction of two characters that I think should be in love, because there's all kinds of fan fiction out there about every character from like every book ever. I'm sure you can find at least one for your given book that you're struggling with. Maybe not, I don't know, but I have had a pretty high success rate so far. And if there's two characters that I want to fall in love, or that I think should be in love, I will just read fan fiction about it, and it will make me want to read the book, because then I will be in that universe more. And fan fiction is usually pretty good about highlighting which stories contain spoilers or not. Not always, but usually, from what I've found, it is pretty good about it. So that's a good way to sort of like navigate around that if you don't want to do spoilers, or if you don't care about spoilers, or depending on what part of the book / series you're in, if you don't even, like, if you already know what happens, then they're not spoilers. There you go. Fanfiction's usually pretty good about that. So, but not always. A disclaimer. I don't know why I'm putting a disclaimer on other people's fanfiction, but I am, because this is my advice. So, read fanfiction. It will help you get into the book's universe. I pinky promise you. Anyway, I am done rambling now about how to get out of a reading slump. I have given you all my tips, things that help me. I do hope that some of these help you. If you have any other tips, please share in the comments below. I would love to have a discussion about this, and maybe someone else could find your advice helpful. Who knows? If you think that I'm a madman for any and / all of the advice that I've given you today, also let me know, because I don't know how crazy I sound sometimes. I do thank you guys so much if you have stuck with me through the end of this video. If you did enjoy, you should like the video because it's easy, comment because it makes me smile, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, friends!